All right, let's talk. You ever feel like life is one big pop quiz you didn't study for? 1 minute, you're cruising along. Everything's smooth. You got your music on, windows down. The next minute, bam! You hit a pothole the size of a crater, your tire is flat, it's raining, and you just remembered you left your phone on the kitchen counter. You look up at the sky and say, "Really? Right now?" I'm here to tell you, that ain't just bad luck. Sometimes that's the universe. That's God, tapping you on the shoulder and saying, "Let's see what you're made of." It's a test, my friend. Now hold on. When I say test, I don't mean the kind where you get a big red F and have to stay after school. No. This ain't about punishment. God ain't up there with a red pen looking for ways to fail you. These tests are more like a divine workout plan. He's your personal trainer. He sees the champion inside you, the person you're meant to be, and he knows you can't get there just by sitting on the couch eating potato chips. So he makes you do some spiritual push-ups. He makes you run some faith-based laps. It feels hard at the time, sure, but it's all designed to build you up, not tear you down. Think of it like this. You can't build a skyscraper on a weak foundation. If God has a big plan for your life, and trust me, He does, He has to make sure your foundation is solid. He's got to test the concrete. He's got to check for cracks. So when life gets tough, don't just throw your hands up in defeat. Instead, you gotta straighten your tie, puff out your chest and say, "All right, I see what's happening here. It's test time. Let's do this." Because passing these tests gets you ready for the penthouse suite He's got waiting for you. This is preparation, not a penalty. So how do you know if you're in the middle of one of these divine examinations? Well, there are a few telltale signs. It's not always as obvious as a flat tire in a rainstorm. Sometimes it's quieter, more subtle. It's a feeling deep in your gut. It's a situation that just won't resolve itself. We're going to break down 3 of the biggest signs that God is testing you. And more importantly, we're going to talk about how you can ace that test. Not just with faith, but with a little bit of humor too. Because if you can't laugh when you're in the thick of it, you're taking it all way too seriously. The first sign that you might be in God's classroom is the silence. And I mean a deep, profound, is this thing on kind of silence. You're praying, you're asking for guidance, you're looking for a sign, any sign. A feather, a song on the radio, a billboard, something. And what do you get back? Crickets. Nothing. It feels like you're talking to a brick wall. You start to wonder if God's gone on vacation and forgot to leave a forwarding address. You're pouring your heart out, and it feels like your prayers are just hitting the ceiling and falling right back down on your head with a thud. This is a tough one. I get it. It's easy to have faith when you feel the fireworks and see the flashing lights. But what about when the show is over and the stadium is dark? That's the real test. The Bible talks about King Hezekiah. The man was a good king, faithful and all that. But then Scripture says God stepped back from him to test him and to know everything that was in his heart. See, God wanted to see what Hezekiah would do when he felt like he was on his own. It wasn't a punishment. It was a character check. He was revealing Hezekiah's heart to Hezekiah himself. I remember a time in my own life I was praying for a breakthrough in my career. I was working hard, doing everything I could, and I was talking to God every single day. "Lord, show me the way, open a door." And for months, all I heard was that big old silence. It was frustrating. I felt like Job, who lost everything but still found it in him to worship. It taught me to have faith not because of what I was getting, but because of who I was talking to. I had to learn to trust him even when I couldn't hear him. It's like trusting the pilot even when you're flying through thick clouds and can't see a thing. So if you're in a silent season right now, don't panic. Don't think you've been forgotten. This is where your faith gets its muscle. Keep talking, keep trusting, keep doing the right thing. This is the part of the movie where the hero has to dig deep. God is quiet because He trusts you to remember the lessons He taught you when He was talking. He's watching, waiting to see if you'll stand on your faith or if you'll fold, so stand tall. The silence is just the calm before the breakthrough. He's about to turn the volume back up, and you want to be ready when He does. Here's the second sign you're being tested. You get pushed way out of your comfort zone. You know that nice, cozy little spot you've carved out for yourself? That job that's secure but doesn't inspire you? That routine that's predictable and safe? Well, God's about to come in like a divine bulldozer and knock down the walls of that comfort zone. He'll ask you to do something that feels too big, too scary, too much for you. He'll nudge you to speak to that person you're terrified of, or leave that safe harbor for the uncertainty of the open sea. Your palms get sweaty just thinking about it. This is a classic move. Look at the Israelites in the Bible. God led them through the wilderness for 40 years. 40 years! That wasn't because his GPS was broken. Deuteronomy says he did it to humble and test you in order to know what was in your heart. The wilderness was their training ground. It was uncomfortable. They were hungry. They were thirsty. They were tired of manna. But it prepared them for the promised land. You can't handle the land of milk and honey if you haven't learned how to survive in the desert. The discomfort is where the growth happens. Think about Moses. God tells him to go to Pharaoh, the most powerful man in the world, and say, "Let my people go." And Moses' first reaction is, you got the wrong guy. I stutter. I'm not a good speaker. He was comfortable being a shepherd, out of the spotlight. But God didn't want him to be comfortable. He wanted him to be a deliverer. Or what about Peter, who was a fisherman? Jesus tells him to get out of the boat and walk on water. A fisherman knows you don't get out of the boat. But the miracle wasn't in the boat. It was on the water. So if you feel God pushing you towards something that makes your knees knock, that's probably a sign. Maybe he's asking you to forgive someone who doesn't deserve it. Maybe he's telling you to start that business you've been dreaming about but are too scared to try. It feels like he's asking for the impossible. But he's not testing your ability. He's testing your obedience and your trust in his ability. He's not going to ask you to walk on water without holding your hand. So, take a deep breath and take that first scary step off the boat. Your comfort zone is a nice place to visit, but nothing ever grows there. The third sign God is testing you is the long, agonizing, pull your hair out delay. You know God has promised you something. You've seen it in your spirit. You know it's for you. It could be a spouse, a child, a business, a ministry. You've got the promise framed on your wall. But then you wait, and you wait, and you wait some more. Years start to go by. You see other people getting the very thing you're praying for, and you start to wonder, God, did you forget about me? Did I hear you wrong? This delay isn't a denial. It's a test of your patience and your perseverance. Look at Abraham, the father of faith. God promised him he would be the father of many nations. Great! Only problem was, he was old, and his wife, Sarah, was old. They waited 25 years for that promise to come to pass. 25 years. I get impatient waiting for my microwave popcorn to finish. Can you imagine waiting a quarter of a century for your promise? And then, after his son Isaac was finally born, God tested him again by asking him to sacrifice him. This was the ultimate test. Do you trust the promise more, or the God who gave you the promise? Then you got Joseph. He had a dream that he would rule, that his brothers would bow down to him. What happened next? He got sold into slavery, thrown in a pit, and then tossed in prison for something he didn't even do. Talk about a delay. It looked like his life was going in the exact opposite direction of his promise. But Psalm 105 says, "Until the time that his word came to pass, the word of the Lord tested him." The promise itself was the test. All that time in the pit and the prison was shaping him, teaching him humility and administration, preparing him to be second in command of all of Egypt. When your breakthrough is delayed, it's not because God is slow. It's because you're in preparation. I know a man who dreamed of starting a mentorship program for young men for over a decade. Door after door closed. He failed in business. He struggled financially. He almost gave up 100 times. But all those failures were teaching him lessons he couldn't have learned any other way. When the program finally launched, it was a massive success because he had the wisdom and the scars to prove he knew what he was talking about. So if you're in the waiting room of life, don't give up. God is using the time to get you ready, so that when the promise arrives, you're ready for it. The longer the wait, the bigger the blessing.
Type in the comments, "This test is tough, but my faith is tougher." And don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications to Bible Verse Light, because your next video could be your divine appointment.